We are now live. Hello and welcome to this live webinar. Today I'm hosting a talk about employee engagement in the real world of work. Is it possible? And my guest today is Colin Newlyn. Welcome, Colin. Colin is a thinker and a writer, and his ideas are called How to Decrapify Work. So, Colin, I'm fascinated by your posts on LinkedIn and your thoughts around the workplace. So tell us about Decrapify Work. What's the big idea? Where did it come from?
Well, interesting enough, it came from employee engagement, really, because I think, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a bit longer than that, there was a lot of talk about employee engagement. It was the newest, the new hot thing. And, my observation was that for a lot of companies, a good way to improve employee engagement would be to stop treating them like crap. Because most organizations don't give a particularly great work experience to their employees. And, that's borne out by the Gallup survey, which I'm not sure the exact latest figures, but I mean, I think it's about 12% in the UK are actively engaged. It might be a bit higher in the US, but it's still pitiful when you think that that's the average. And some companies are really good. So quite a lot of companies are not very good at this. And what people, I think there's just not an understanding of what people want from work. And that's why people aren't engaged, because they're just not getting what they need out of work. And there hasn't been like a real focus on that. So that's what got me writing about it. And also, my own experience of work. I was in the corporate workplace for a bit over 20 years. It didn't go well, really. And my observation was that actually over that period and subsequently, the work experience has deteriorated for a number of different reasons. So I don't think it's one particular thing. I think there's been a number of different forces. Things like focus on profits, putting profits before people. There's been this obsession with process, which has sort of like removed a lot of agency that people had. Technology's become actually a bad thing in many ways, because people are stuck in front of screens all day rather than talking to each other. They've got mobile technology, so you don't. When I started in work, when I walked out the office, that was it. I couldn't work outside the office, and now people have to do, they're doing emails, they go to bed and stuff like that, which is really unhealthy for them. So there's a combination of these factors that have caused it, and they interact with each other. So they've, one of them we could have coped with, but all sort of half a dozen, it's just become too much. And so that was the process. I called that the process of crapification. And then obviously what you then have to do is decrapify work. So it's more been an exploration about like what are the real problems here? How do they manifest themselves? What do we do to address them? That's what I've been writing about and looking at.
So you were saying employees are not getting what they want out of work and having a bad experience, and you've mentioned some of the reasons for that. How does that show in people's actual experience? So what's happening in the workplace that you've identified that's making people so disengaged?
Well, we've had a lot of talk recently about purpose, and I think one of the things that has happened is that people have become sort of disengaged from what the end goal is. So work, because of this sort of, we've had the curse of the MBAs coming in and putting process everywhere and codifying everything, slicing and dicing the work streams to an extent where people are, they're doing something, but they don't really understand how that delivers a benefit to the end. So disengaged from the impact. It's I don't know if you remember, there always used to be these cartoons back in the day with people sitting at a desk with a big in tray and a big out tray, and passing paper from one to the other, and basically that's really what work has become for a lot of people. It's just done electronically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The work stream comes in, you do something to it, you shove it out the other side, and you don't really know why.
Right. Okay.
The other observation I make is that the work's become a lot less social and a lot more stressed than it used to be.
Yeah.
So, when we started work, you would be talking to a lot of people all the time because that's how you communicated. You couldn't send an email.
Yeah.
Or whatever. There's a lot more human interaction. Organisations encourage that. So organisations would give people money to run social clubs and some organisations, big sports grounds and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Very much. And all that's been stripped out of organisations. Plus the workload's been ramped up. So even if you had it there, people just don't have the time to do that stuff because value isn't really attached to it.
Okay.
Which is, odd because that's where you form the relationships that actually make things work and make things enjoyable. I think one of the Gallup questions is, one of their things they survey is about whether people have friends at work.
Yeah.
And the beneficial effect of having a friend at work is enormous. And it's enormous for the individual and it's also in the company. But how do people get the chance to form those bonds? Because work's been so atomized and accelerated and increased in load that I think this one.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So what you're saying is what employees, one of the things really want from work is a purpose, like a bigger picture of what they're doing, and also some sort of human interaction and social connection. What else would you say employees really want from work, in your view? So
I guess one of the things that's obviously top of the pile at the moment is autonomy. It's back to Dan Pink's book Drive, where he identifies 3 sort of sources of motivation, which is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So autonomy is a big one. People want to have control over their schedule, over their workload, over their work environment. That's going to lead to a lot more engagement, and we've probably seen a move away from that because people are the roles are very tightly defined. People are closely monitored, surveillance of what people do, like measurement, and they're not given the latitude to come up with their own sort of solutions. I'm generalising here. Obviously, there are some people who do have those opportunities, but a lot of work is you're just a cog in the machine.
Yeah,
you have to go around in a certain way at a certain speed, and that's it. And you don't get much choice about that. And that didn't used to be the case. In the past, quite often, as I say, when I started work, which was a long time ago, processes weren't really very well defined because that. And so people had to figure stuff out for themselves, and they can have a real impact, a personal impact on how that work was done. And I think that's not available to people now because there's a procedure, a process to be followed, and that doesn't give people the control that they need. So obviously with COVID and people working from home, they've gained a lot of autonomy back.
Okay.
And they don't want to let go of it.
Well, that's interesting. So that's almost saying that because of that, it's actually maybe set us slightly on a different path from where we were going. So does that offer an opportunity then for more engagement? The fact that people are working from home or working virtually?
Yeah, I think so, because I guess so what for a lot of people, and again, it's not universal. Some people find it really difficult, but for a lot of people, they found that they are more productive. They're able to get more focused work done, which is increasingly what knowledge work is. It's about that deep work. So I suppose that industry box, they've got time to settle down and do what they feel is really work and hone their skills like that. Whereas obviously in the office environment, there's lots of interruptions. You have to be places for meetings and things. It's much easier to create space when you're not in the office. So I think that's that's part of it. But it's also moving. It's enabled. It's removed some of the barriers to bring in newer ways of working. So I mean, I favour having much more in the way of self-organising teams as a structure rather than sort of command.
Right.
And
so how does that work, Colin? How would a self-organising team work then? Because that's a really interesting idea, and it sounds like it's possible. It's actually something we can do.
Yeah. So. So it's really, rather than the sort of tight prescriptive ways of working that people are given now, it's really about allowing a team, giving them sort of their rules of engagement and their objective, and then allowing them to figure out for themselves how they're going to do that. But it can be quite, I mean, you can start with quite simple stuff. So, like if you have, and we're seeing this now. So in terms of when teams need to come together in the office, rather than prescribing, well, you've got to come in on Tuesday and Thursday, then you just let the team figure it out for themselves. Some teams may need to get together 2 or 3 days a week. For others, it may be, well, actually, we can just all get together, like once a week, or 1 week in every 4, or whatever suits them. So it depends. So it's giving the control to figure out what the right cadence is. Rather than putting them in some sort of straitjacket.
Okay. Yeah.
Things like letting teams sort out their own holiday schedules.
Yes.
Rather than elaborate process that has to go up to CEO, which is one of the opportunities available is to actually strip out a lot of bureaucracy, and bureaucracy is definitely one of the things that drive people nuts at work. It's just because it's just a waste of time for most people's lives. So I guess the other part of that is higher levels of trust. If you have a high trust environment, then a lot of bureaucracy appears. So if you trust people to be sensible about their expenses and take liberties with their travel arrangements and stuff like that, then you don't need to check it. You can just retrospectively say, well, actually, you've got a bit too far there, but most people won't. Most people are responsible. I think the fact, there'll be a lot more engagement if we just recognise that most people turn up to work wanting to do a good job, just to make a contribution. And a lot of, if you look at an employee handbook, it's mostly about things you can't do, and it's basically saying, the subtext of it is you are lazy, you will steal things, and you're not responsible enough to be trusted.
So we're going to put all these rules in place to keep an eye on you and control everything you. That's an implicit message that is there, that people receive that unconsciously, and it's not really intentional, but that's actually what it's saying to people. And then most people aren't engaged
because if you don't feel you're trusted, why should you put yourself out?
That's such a good point. I never thought of it that way before. Yeah.
I have to credit Frederick Lally for that observation.
Great observation nonetheless. Thank you for sharing it with us. I think that's really, really interesting. So that sounds like if you're running a small company or a small team, it sounds like you could do that. If you're in a big organization, with all of that layers of management and layers of process, is there anything that you can do as whether it's a team leader or a manager, is there anything you can do at your level in practically to decrapify the workplace?
Yeah, I think, the obvious answer is be a good boss, because we know that, the majority of the biggest reason, I think it's about half of people leave because they've got a bad boss. So so you've actually got, if you're in that sort of position, what I would call sort of junior middle management role, possibly, you've actually got a lot of influence over the people that you work for. That's, to me, that's where culture in an organisation actually gets formed, because the culture that you experience is the interactions you have with the people that you work with every day, the people in your team.
Yes.
So if the team leader sets a good culture within the team, then people enjoy going to work. So that's, I would say that's about, giving people trust, encouraging them to develop themselves and grow, and as much as possible, like giving away power. So we have all these ideas that are put about what you have to do to be a leader. Leaders have to have all the answers and be in charge and direct things, and I've never really bought into that. Mostly because I don't like being told what to do. So, why do I think other people would like to be told?
Would want to, right?
So I think if you can get away from that and work with your team to find solutions to issues, and be open to challenge and ideas coming from elsewhere, and engage your team in deciding what needs to be done and how it's going to be done.
Right.
So there's a lot of. It means spending a lot of time talking to people.
And listening, presumably, as well.
And listening, it's surprising how many people who run teams don't actually spend time talking to their team. I always made a point of touching base with people in my team every week, which is, if you're working in a distributed environment, that's even more important to make it, put it in the diary, because you won't bump into each other in the office.
Right.
Most likely. So I think having that sort of structured or scheduling in times to connect, and that connection could be just to sort of, sometimes it's about just checking up on progress. Do you need any help? And then maybe on a monthly basis doing a more, general conversation about how things are going. It's about building relationships again with your team. If people feel, if people feel they are appreciated and they're listened to, and their views are taken into account, then they're going to feel much happier about their work experiences. When people feel being ignored, that their views aren't counted at all, and they're just being ordered around, then that's when they get disengaged.
Makes sense. That makes total sense. I guess, like you say, just treating people like adults, really, right?
Absolutely. A lot of the workplace is really, particularly in, we're used to these hierarchical command and control structures. it's very much a parent-child relationship. And that, that doesn't really suit the modern workplace, because you don't have all the answers. You can't have all the answers.
Yes.
Life's too complicated.
And
and none of us are as smart as all of us.
And of course, as you said to me before, it's about how you help people to become more creative and innovative. So they're not going to do that, right, if you're telling them what to do. You're kind of saying, be innovative through this way, which just doesn't work.
Yeah. Be creative. No, not like that.
Yeah, that's right. This way. Be creative my way. Yeah.
I mean, it's about letting go of, you have to give away your power to some degree. It's that idea of, we have this idea that power is all about power over. And actually there's another idea, which is power with, which was something that Mary Parker Follett came up with in the 1920s and 1930s. Okay,
all right.
Okay. So this is that you have power because you share it with the people. That's more about influencing and listening and engaging with people. Where power over is just telling people what to do.
Yeah.
And I think increasingly people don't want to be told what to do. In the rest of their lives, they're not told what to do.
Yeah.
We talk about, you're saying about adult relationships. We employ people. A lot of companies spend a lot of time and effort finding the very best, most qualified, most motivated people they can.
Yes.
People who take, who get married and have children and buy houses and climb mountains and do all sorts of things, and then they treat them like children.
Yes.
And then they wonder why they're not motivated. Why they're disengaged.
Yes.
Why did you go to all that effort if you just wanted someone to come along and do what they told?
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
It's funny, isn't it, how that seems to have gone down through the years. And I suppose it's maybe if they're that culture, it's hard to break that culture. So if you've been managed that way,
yes,
then I guess unless you decide otherwise, you're going to do the same thing, which is the whole culture. Again, and we're very much about workplace culture as well, because I'm very much around talking to each other, giving feedback for a better workplace. We want a better workplace, whether that's virtual or office based. And like you say, it's so important to have those conversations, real conversations, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you've heard of Barry Wehmiller, which is the US organization. Simon Sinek writes about them. Bob Chapman, who stepped down now, but he used to be the CEO. This idea of truly human leadership, and he has between 500 and 600 one-to-one conversations a year, and he expects his managers to be constantly going out and talking to people. They have very little formal reporting.
Right.
Because his argument is, well, if you're talking to people, you know what's going on. You don't need them to fill out reports.
Forms. Yeah.
And that, it just seems like that's coming back to a much more human way of with more interaction and you pick up the nuance. I mean, you'll know yourself if you go into a new organisation and you spend a couple of days chatting to people, you really start to get a feel for the place.
What's going on?
You get a feel for what's really going on. What you've been told is happening.
Yes.
And but I think that's having a leadership team that are actually connected with what's happening is a big thing as well, because as you know yourself, there's always there's often the case that there's a sort of conversation going on amongst the employees about what's happening that is very different to the message.
The official line. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's, yeah. But also, what I think what you said was quite critical about that the organization you mentioned, which I didn't quite pick up their name, but the one where the CEO had those 600 conversations, it's what the organization values the team leader doing. Because if I'm doing all those conversations, but I'm not, that's not being recognized as something that's good or something that's valuable, then I'm not going to keep doing that, because I won't be in my job, because they'll be saying, well, Joe just spends all her time talking to people. No, she hasn't filled in any forms. She hasn't given any reports. So it is about so much about culture, isn't it? It's about changing the culture. Yeah.
I think that's a real problem that organizations have. Have this, there's all this talk about, well, we want more creativity and innovation, we want a more human workforce. They don't allow any space for any of that to happen.
Yeah.
Because people are too busy carrying out processes and filling out and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think, that's why I talk about, the pirate mentality and having little mutinies. So I think people who are in those team leadership positions actually are not senior, are sort of junior enough to escape a certain amount of scrutiny and actually have a lot of power.
Right. Yeah.
So, they can, with their team, they can, if they decide that the way they've been told to do things doesn't really work, and do it a different way. As long as they're hitting the results, like, well, what's going to happen? And this already happens, because quite often you get strategy handed down from high that doesn't really make any sense.
Right.
And it's up to the people in that sort of team leadership, junior middle management positions to actually translate that into something that people can do. So if you're doing that, why can't you just stop doing some of the stuff that's nonsense, and we'll give you more time, or structure things in a way that suits you rather than what officially you're supposed to do. And you can either do it in your face way, or you can do it in a bit more of a sort of subtle way.
Subtle, yeah.
I used to do a lot of project management as part of my role, and I was pretty good. I was pretty successful at it, but I didn't follow the process. I sort of had my own way of doing it, and then I made it look like I'd followed the process.
Right.
And having subsequently talked to a number of people who are quite good at product management. That's most people who are good at product or project management rather have their own way of doing things.
Yes.
And it's actually not about the process. It's not about following the Prince 2 structures. Yeah. It's mostly about building relationships with people and creating teams out of your project team, which is all the so-called soft skills.
Right. Yes.
That are not soft, but really hard.
Yeah, they're harder, aren't they? Yeah.
And it's the human stuff. That's makes a successful project. It's getting human, not making sure you've got all your risk registers up to date and
absolutely, yeah.
It's out on time and tracking your actions and all that sort of stuff, which I was pretty terrible at.
So it's really about humanizing the workplace in a way, isn't it? From what abroad to decrapify is sort of going back to human interactions.
Absolutely,
yeah.
I think because engagement is about people being connected, and we don't really connect to a process. We don't connect to an organizational structure. We connect to people. So that's really what it's about.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, that's really what it's about, isn't it? It's like we get things done with people, with other people. Yeah.
And it's about that's about connecting together. What I'm trying to say here. I mean, one of the tools that you can use in that situation is the pirate code.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so when I talk about the pirates, these are the pirates in the golden age of pirates in the sort of late 17th, early 18th century, and so they were in a world where they were all subjects. They were often been in the navy, where they were subjected to some quite brutal regimes at times. And they got chucked out of the navy and they had nothing to do. And they decided that they were going to create their own environment, their own society. And so they came up with their own rules. And they were very much around freedom and equality and fairness. And the way they sort of came to agreement on a pirate ship is they create a pirate code, which was a set of principles and rules that they all agreed to follow. And this would be an open discussion, and they would agree, and it would be everybody would know what the code was. They were written down, but not very often, because if you were found in possession of a pirate code, then you were obviously a pirate and you'd be hanged. So,
okay, got that. Yeah.
So the idea was, so first of all, it was reached in agreement, and it was voted.
Yeah.
And secondly, it focused a lot on behaviours rather than values, because values don't really mean anything.
Yeah.
But, we
it's what you actually do. Yeah.
Our values by what we do. So you have behaviour, and you would agree what the sanction was if anybody,
right. Okay.
broke the rules. And so the pirate codes, they're quite amusing in some ways, because they sort of go down to some very quite specific things at times. Okay. But that's something you can do with your team. So, well, how are we going to behave? What's our sort of working with each other?
Yeah.
And having a discussion about that can surface all sorts of issues and reach agreement. And then if someone's not keeping the code, then you have another conversation about, like, well, okay, then what are we going to do about this? But it's having that that agreement up front.
Yeah.
I think some organisations are starting to talk about. Microsoft has got something very, very similar that they don't call it pirate. But it's at a team level, you agree how you're going to work together, basically.
Yeah.
And you can put all sorts of stuff in there, like some people may have preferences around how they're communicated with, preferences around how often they want to be, face to face and all that sort of stuff. You can debate all that stuff and come to an agreement that includes everybody. And if people feel heard, that's another big plus for their engagement.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, if everyone comes to a consensus on how we're going to do stuff, then it's easier to, I suppose, not check things, but just when somebody does something different, it's the whole group. It's not they're being told off. It's that you agreed to this.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
were part of the conversation. So yeah, very interesting.
People police themselves. I mean, again, it's that the assumption has to go away from people. People are they're going to misbehave and need to be. People will act. Act from the best of intentions. So if you need something, then you will do your best to stick by it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It's that. Yeah, it's like when people are asked to commit to something, learning or whatever, or they declare that they're going to do that, they're more committed, aren't they? If they've agreed to it and they want it. Yeah, very interesting.
Because they feel that they are, they're part of the agreement. So they're automatically signed up for it.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love the pirate code idea. I'm going to go away and have a look at that. But I think that's such a great example. So Colin, we've just about running out of time. So I guess what you're saying, coming across to me, is employee engagement is absolutely possible and absolutely doable, bearing in mind what you've been talking about. So it can be done.
Yeah, but I think it's about, establish, getting the right assumptions in place about
Okay.
people working for you. I think it's Ruta Brugman wrote a book, that actually most people are good. Most
Yeah.
people do the right thing.
Yeah.
Certainly, most people don't get up in the morning and say, I'm going to go to work and do a really shitty job today. They get up and say, I want to make a contribution today.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you allow people to make a contribution, then you're engaged.
Yeah. 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 That's a great positive note to end our conversation on. So Colin, you're on LinkedIn. If anybody wants to pick up this conversation with you after they've seen the broadcast, then is there anything else you want to tell people, or
I write a weekly newsletter,
right,
which is on Substack, Decrapify Work. And there's a decrapifywork.com website.
Okay.
You can find some more stuff about Decrapify Work, and where all the posts I put on LinkedIn, I also put on the blog there.
Well, I'll put, when I finish the broadcast, and when we put the broadcast out for viewing, I'll put your the link to the Substack, the newsletter as well, so people can access your newsletters as well and contact you if they need to. Yeah,
lovely. I mean, I'm very happy to, if anybody wants to get in touch and have a chat.
Okay, great. Colin, it's been brilliant speaking to you. I've learned a lot. Lots and lots of things to think about. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Really enjoyable.
Okay, great. Take care now.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.